Agar apko isi stories pasand hain to please subscribe karna na bulan. Apka ek click mujhe aur stories banan ke liye motivate karta hai. The city was wrapped in winter's chill. Snowflakes drifted gently through the air, settling on the glowing streets of Manhattan. Expensive cars lined the front of the Cole Grand Hotel, where holiday music played faintly from hidden speakers. Shoppers hurried by with bags and bright scarves, laughter echoing under the soft glow of Christmas lights. From a black Rolls-Royce, Ethan Cole stepped out, tall, sharply dressed, and unmistakably powerful. The kind of man who owned half the skyline. His phone was pressed to his ear as he barked quiet orders about a merger worth hundreds of millions. To everyone else, he was a symbol of success. But inside, his world was made of deadlines, silence, and empty penthouses. As he turned toward the hotel entrance, something faint, barely a sound, caught his ear. It wasn't the usual city noise. It was softer, fragile, greater than, "Please, don't make me go back." Ethan stopped mid-step. The words were carried on the cold air, trembling like a secret. He frowned, glancing around. The voice came again, weaker this time. He followed the sound toward a narrow alley beside the hotel, where the light barely reached. There, beside a trash bin, he saw a small figure curled up under an oversized coat. A little girl, maybe 8, maybe younger, clutching a torn teddy bear. Her knees were pulled to her chest, her lips blue from the cold. Ethan's phone slipped from his hand, landing softly in the snow. He didn't care. He crouched down, speaking gently. Greater than, "Hey, are you okay?" The girl flinched but didn't run. Her big brown eyes lifted to meet his. In that moment, the noise of the city faded. It was just the two of them, a billionaire who thought he'd seen everything, and a child who'd seen too much. He took off his leather gloves and reached out, offering his hand. Greater than, "You're safe. I promise." The girl hesitated, then whispered again, almost like she didn't believe anyone could mean it. Greater than, "Please, don't make me go back." And right then, Ethan Cole, a man who lived for numbers and power, felt something stir inside him. Something he hadn't felt in years. Humanity. Snow continued to fall softly as Ethan Cole crouched beside the little girl. Her small frame shook with every breath, and her fingers gripped the edge of her worn-out teddy bear like it was the only thing keeping her safe. Greater than, "Hey," Ethan said gently, his voice lower now, calmer. "It's freezing out here. Where are your parents?" The girl didn't answer right away. Her eyes darted toward the alley's entrance, as if she was afraid someone might appear. After a long pause, she whispered. Greater than, "They're gone." Her voice cracked on the last word. Ethan's chest tightened. He had no idea what "gone" meant, dead, missing, or something worse. He sat down on the cold pavement beside her, ignoring the snow seeping into his tailored pants. Greater than, "Do you have somewhere to stay? Anyone looking for you?" She shook her head slowly, then added in a trembling voice. Greater than, "They said I had to go back. But I don't wanna. They yell. They hit. They say I talk too much, or not enough." Her words came out tangled, confused, but painfully honest. Ethan suddenly realized she wasn't just lost. She was running from somewhere. He asked softly. Greater than, "What's your name, sweetheart?" Greater than, "Lily," she whispered. The name hit him harder than he expected. His mother's name was Lily, too. He hadn't spoken it aloud in years. For a moment, the world seemed to slow, like fate was staring him in the face. Ethan reached for his coat and wrapped it around her tiny shoulders. She flinched at first, then relaxed as the warmth surrounded her. He pulled out his phone, ready to call the police or a shelter, but stopped. He'd donated to dozens of charities, foster homes, and child care centers under his company's name. One of them was just a few blocks away. Could that be where she'd come from? When he asked, Lily's eyes filled with panic. Greater than, "Please don't take me there. Please." The way she said it, desperate, terrified, told Ethan everything he needed to know. This wasn't just a lost child. This was a cry for help from a system he thought he'd been fixing. And for the first time in years, Ethan realized money hadn't solved anything. Ethan Cole stood in the warm glow of the hotel lobby, holding the little girl's hand. Guests turned to stare, a billionaire in a $1,000 suit, dusted with snow, leading a frightened child wrapped in his coat. But Ethan didn't care. For once, appearances meant nothing. He guided Lily to a sofa near the fireplace. The warmth hit her face, and she exhaled, almost as if she hadn't felt heat in days. A server approached, but Ethan waved him off and ordered softly. Greater than, hot chocolate. Extra marshmallows. Lily's small fingers traced the stitching of his coat. Her eyes wandered across the golden lights and polished marble floors, a world she'd only ever seen through windows. Greater than, you're safe here, Ethan said quietly. No one's going to hurt you. She didn't answer, just nodded, sipping her cocoa when it arrived. Ethan sat across from her, feeling a weight in his chest he couldn't describe. For years, he'd built empires, luxury hotels, tech startups, endless zeros on screens, yet he couldn't remember the last time he'd felt something real. He finally asked, greater than, that place you ran from, was it the Hope Street home? Her eyes widened. She nodded slowly. Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine. Hope Street was one of his company's charity projects, the one his board bragged about during press conferences. He'd seen the reports, the photos of smiling kids, the spotless rooms. But those images were just paper. Lies wrapped in good PR. Lily's quiet voice broke his thoughts. Greater than, they don't like when we cry. They say crying makes us weak. Ethan clenched his fists. He remembered those same words, thrown at him as a boy after his father's death. He'd promised himself he'd never be that cold again, yet somehow, he'd turned into a man who only measured life in profits. He looked at Lily, a child who had nothing, yet somehow had more courage than he did. That night, Ethan canceled his meetings, told his driver to go home, and made a decision that would change his life forever. He would see that foster home with his own eyes. Not as a billionaire, but as a man who finally remembered what it meant to care. The next morning, gray clouds hung over the city as Ethan Cole stood outside Hope Street foster home. The once proud building he'd seen in glossy charity photos now looked tired and lifeless. The paint was peeling, windows were cracked, the laughter he expected to hear from children was replaced by silence. Ethan stepped inside. A woman at the front desk looked startled. Greater than, Mr. Cole, we weren't expecting you. Greater than, I'm not here for a photo, he said firmly. I'm here to see how these kids are living. The woman hesitated but led him down the narrow halls. The smell of bleach and old food filled the air. Kids sat quietly on worn couches, eyes dull, movements careful, as if afraid to be noticed. Ethan's gut twisted. He entered a dorm room. 3 metal beds, thin blankets, no toys. The little boy stared at him, whispering, greater than, are you the man who owns this place? Ethan nodded softly. The boy looked down. Greater than, then why don't you make it better? That question hit harder than any deal gone wrong. Ethan's throat tightened as he realized, for all his money, his name on the walls meant nothing if the kids behind them were suffering. He spent hours there, talking to caretakers, hearing their struggles, underfunded staff, broken systems, and kids who slipped through the cracks. And all this time, he'd thought he was helping. That night, Ethan returned to his penthouse. But for the first time, the silence felt unbearable. The city lights below didn't look beautiful anymore, they looked distant, hollow. He walked to the couch where Lily slept, curled up under a blanket, her teddy bear tucked close. Watching her, he whispered, greater than, I can fix this. I will fix this. It wasn't just a promise to her, it was a promise to himself. Over the following weeks, Ethan used his wealth, time, and voice to rebuild the foster program from the ground up. Not just money, love, education, family connections. He hired counselors, created safe spaces, and made sure no child felt unseen again. And through every step, one memory kept him moving, a little girl's trembling whisper on a winter night. Greater than, please don't make me go back. Spring sunlight poured through the windows of the newly rebuilt Hope Street Family Center. The gray, lifeless building Ethan Cole had once walked through was gone. In its place stood a bright, warm home filled with laughter, color, and life. The walls were painted with murals the kids had made themselves, stars, trees, and handprints. Ethan stood by the entrance, watching volunteers help children plant flowers in the garden. He wasn't wearing a suit today, just jeans, a sweater, and a smile that came from somewhere deep and real. A familiar voice called out behind him. Greater than, Mr. Ethan. He turned, and there she was, Lily, wearing a yellow dress and holding her teddy bear, the same one from that cold winter night. But now her eyes sparkled with joy. Behind her stood a kind-looking couple, her new adoptive parents. Lily ran up and threw her arms around him. Ethan bent down and hugged her tightly, his eyes glistening. Greater than, "Hey, kiddo," he said softly. "You look happy." She nodded. Greater than, "I am. I have a new mom and dad now. They're really nice. And, I help with the other kids too." Ethan smiled, pride swelling in his chest. Greater than, "That's amazing, Lily. You're brave, you know that." She pulled back slightly and whispered, her voice gentle but strong. Greater than, "Thank you, for hearing me that night." Her words hit him like sunlight after a long storm. He swallowed hard and whispered back. Greater than, "You saved me too, Lily." They stood there for a long moment, a man who once measured life in billions, and a little girl who reminded him what life was really worth. As Lily ran off to join the other kids, Ethan looked around the courtyard. Every smile, every laugh, every small hand planting flowers, it was living proof that kindness had power money could never buy. He took a deep breath, his heart lighter than it had been in years. Greater than, sometimes, he said quietly to himself, the smallest whisper can change the loudest life. And with that, Ethan Cole walked toward the garden, not as a billionaire, but as a man reborn by compassion.